My question is it being organically cultivated?
Not to my knowledge, but this is essentially a weed, sir. So it grows organically. Nobody goes and fertilizes it with chemical fertilizers. Uh, Anybody who is interested, I will invite him to go and take a holy dip in Rishikesh or Haridwar, and just keep your eyes open to the roadside, and you will see it growing rampantly through miles and miles. If it is commercially grown, possibly down the line with the research, people will use some fertilizers and some pesticides. And I guess your concern is driven by consumption and then some similar elements going into human body, etc., etc. Since I have already given a disclaimer on this consumption, and for medicinal use, the THC and CBD is derived out of a process which will be, with great. I mean, that side of things are very regulated, so they will do that under those regulations. So such substances will not find the way. And other industrial ones, for instance, in concrete, one which I have mentioned, or in clothing, etc. I think the process of building those material will leach out all these things. In fact, your other things present in your environment will be far more damaging to you by way of artificial additives.
Can you, tell us something more about influence of opium on our freedom movement, as well as influence of opium in China through British domination?
Opium should be another area of serious research, but the truth is, a lot of information is available on how British did things about opium. In fact, if you are literally inclined, I would greatly encourage you to read the book Sea of Poppies by Amitabh Ghosh. It's a wonderful book, and you will get a lot of answers.
Hello. You just said about a certain plant or grass that it prevents aging process and it prevents Alzheimer, which is related to memory. So, I want to know whether such plants prolong our life also, or there are some other plants or grasses or natural.
I think, sir, you have missed some part of the talk. Essentially, this same plant, which we call marijuana or hemp, or some derivatives of this, that only are used for preventing aging. I will not, prescribe or give any comment as to how it should be used medicinally. Medical use should be all said and done under certain guidance and certain good understanding, at least, even if you do it voluntarily. So anybody who is interested in using it for medicinal purpose, I would encourage them to definitely consult their medical practitioners and have a good look at available literature before they use it. But like I said, more than 150 papers I have personally seen. So there is enough evidence as per the modern scientific research norms that this is a medically beneficial plant and its derivatives are medically beneficial.
You mentioned plastic. I'm curious about how is this a replacement for plastic? The second is related to growing in India. So I'm actually funding a project with IIT Delhi for weeds to paper. Hopefully it will get selected.
Weeds to paper, you
Yes,
said?
weeds to paper. So we are looking at Prosopis juliflora, which is Vilayati kikar, and also hemp. But IIT Delhi has refused to look at hemp because of legal issues of growing.
It's great to have audience like this who bring the focus on how it stymies your own interest. either because of somebody else did something else and you signed something ignorantly, etc., etc., and now you can't use something which is indigenous to India, grows rampantly, grows wild, grows very fast, is abundant, doesn't harm you. I referred to the British report, 3,000 page. It is available. Please go through it. Greatly encourage. And because if I will grow, at this moment it is illegal. As soon as I grow, some cop can come and tell how. In fact, one of my colleagues, as an anecdote I can share, it happened. Because this grows wild. In somebody's garden, it started growing. Then someday cops landed up and said, "You are growing this." Then that guy was able to get out of the situation by saying, "Look, I cannot control weeds. Now you are telling me it is a weed or a problem, I'll remove it. But I had nothing to do with its growth." It grows that way. In fact, if we go out in this lane, for all we know, we might find it growing somewhere in the corner. But coming to your point, Rahul, if people like IIT, for instance, if I obtain not because you need STEM only for paper, which is not narcotic or psychotropic. So they can actually obtain it and do, and if you will need my help, I will come and talk to them to help you, because if we can bring a paper, as such there are enough papers, because I have not, I did not think that maybe people will find the way of making paper out of marijuana kind of, the technical discussion very interesting. I did not touch upon it. But you can very well imagine, I have the whole plant. Only the flowery top part is giving me that other thing. The whole plant is full of fiber. And stem is having again 3-4 layers. So there are different layers and different things are found out of that. So the research is very, very much to be encouraged, and this is what has lagged. If we would have researched on hemp plant for last 50 years, probably given our natural advantage to grow it, we would have been growing the best hemp in the world, which will produce whatever the best secondary derivative, etc., etc. It can even be used for making alcohol, etc., because eventually the fiber can be, fermented, etc. So once it is, and then we have a lot of wasteland in India. So in fact, I was thinking whether I should go and research as to how much wasteland is available versus what is grown on that wasteland, and can we sort of leverage the, giving some kind of a government scheme that, okay, I'll give you 50 acres of wasteland for whatever, some very small lease, and you please try to grow, this kind of plants. But what Rahul mentioned actually maps to this. So if IIT comes with a report which supports this kind of a thought, maybe this kind of government scheme can be launched. We have a lot of wasteland. Although we have in this aspect, India has been very lucky. We have a lot of agricultural land as compared to the entire surrounding region, and we have a lot of wasteland. And we have a lot of slopes also. And a lot of rain happens in certain areas, in certain, for instance, Malabar, it grows because they have slopes of the Western Ghats and they have a lot of rain. So wherever it finds that right footing, it grows on its own.
We would stick to your initial disclaimer that this is not to promote recreational use of marijuana. But if I were to play the devil's advocate, the popular argument is that if you legalize, let's say, marijuana, then it can be better regulated, and like the criminal usage of it and the benefits that criminals are or like that network is deriving out of it can be regulated. And otherwise, how is it any different from a cigarette or other things which are legal in India? So why not legalize that?
First a disclaimer.
There is a demand in USA to legalize.
No, demand in USA to legalize is for the medicinal use. Possibly for recreational use also, because even when you
Canada
smoke, you harm yourself a little, but you gain something also. It's a. If you will ask my personal view, Every time you take a chemotherapy, same thing happens. It harms you and it cures you. So you actually, and we have seen that certain patients succumb to chemotherapy only, to my knowledge, and some people recover because it has given them more good and less harm. So, if he is asking me that whether they should give a carte blanche legalization, I don't see too much of problem because of whatever is the past history of India. We have never used it rampantly. That's why I was encouraging that what solid data we have. Any research you cannot build it on suppositions and conjectures. You build a hypothesis and then you look for evidence. So we already have evidence of those British studies, and my lament, in fact my whole purpose of this was that people should get interested in researching. So, I mean, my friend is already on the ball.
Thank you very much for a very nice talk, first and foremost. So I have two observations.
It's a pleasure, ma'am.
Two observations. One is what you talked about, the cultural aspect. So the use of bhang is actually more in the north of India as far as I know, because I'm from Bangalore.
Are you from South? Huh?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm from Bangalore, and we've never really used bhang. The first time I got to use it even was when I came to study in Delhi. That's one. So what is your view on that? Is there any literature available on why that was? Because all of us are Shiva worshippers and everything, but ye tradition nahi hai ki we will use bhang. The second thing is also one of the points.
Very interesting observation.
So I just wanted to know if you have read up anything on
No. You realize that as a researcher, I see one direct correlation and one inverse correlation, and that contrast is interesting.
The second observation is actually more with regard to the usage, right? Among the many uses that you mentioned, which are valid. One of the other uses which I accidentally discovered is also in toiletries. Now, there's a very well-known brand called The Body Shop, which is now under L'Oreal, which actually launched a range of skincare like moisturizers and things, hemp. They actually put it as hemp. They've got many different ranges.
So I have a feeling that they have probably derived other oils and have used it in. See, I will share with you.
Advertise it as hemp. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The hemp range.
Let me share some additional data. Unless you would like to add something to the question.
So
Okay.
if we can do it with that, then why can't we? What is the problem here in our legal?
There is a edible oil also possible out of hemp. I don't know whether it is derived out of seed only, but I suspect probably it is derived out of seed. And I have seen, because I have tried to search for hemp oil. So I have a feeling that hemp oil is the generic oily portion which is edible but non-psychotropic. So probably they extract first the THC portion, and then balance oil is edible. But to be very frank, here I am guessing a little. I have not gone into the detailed chemical engineering oriented process, but it is commercially available. In fact, I checked through certain online portals. It is available for something like 350 rupees. But 350 rupee oil is not the psychotropic part. That kind of oil, which is psychotropic part, which is medicinally used, or the CBD part, roughly comes for 5,000 to 6,000 rupees for very small 10 cc, 5 cc kind of amounts. And given its medical usage, this is another thrust, which is why shouldn't it be grown in greater number, why this oil should not be made available to those who are in some medical need at a far cheaper rate. Shaivites have association with bhang consumption. So one is cultural. I have also consumed bhang during Holi's, because they mix and make a nice thandai kind of drink, which can be with bhang or without bhang. But when you want to have that kind of fun, little bit doesn't hurt you.
There is an aspect of Siddha Vaidyam in Tamil, in South India.
Siddha medicine, you are saying,
Yeah,
essentially.
Siddha
The branch of Indian medicine. So Siddha is one, North Indian is slightly different.
To my, again, intelligent guess, and shown that.
So every time audience here is making intelligence guess, actually it is opening a door for further investigation. So in that sense, I am, not only entertaining, but even if I don't have the answer, I am actually trying to address it.
Now, the observation is, in the Siddha Vaidya books, they talk about medicinal plants grown on the foothills of where Ooty is currently, and their uses, especially the root or the stem, as well as the leaf and the fruit, and the drawings of which more or less resembles the hemp. So the use of this has been there probably even before it was there.
I'm very sure that I have not been able to search the Indian medical texts because of the linguistic searchability kind of a problem.
So
of
that
Indian
is the
texts.
second aspect I am saying.
But if
We have a very isolated knowledge between north and south, and there is hardly any bridge. There has very rarely been any translation of these writings of South.
I'm in complete agreement with you. I have stayed in South for long periods myself. I studied from Calicut. I was there for about 5 years. And I visited some of these Vaidishalas, which were actually even more prevalent in my time. I finished my engineering sometime in 85. So you could go and talk to them, and at that time I could converse a little bit in Malayalam. Now it has all rusted away. This barrier exists, and the forums and the excellent work done by my colleagues and friends in Srijan Foundation is one of the ways. At least I have been able to hear her perspective and yours, and you have been kind enough to hear me out. So this is how it will happen actually, and a lot of good things can come out of it, to be very frank. I have seen one thing, and this is, I am giving a very overarching and perhaps a controversial statement. Wherever Indian and in general any knowledge tradition which was indigenous to any area, whatever modern technology has brought to it, it has rarely been able to improve upon that paradigm. It has settled to its most optimal level, and it is rarely improvable.
No, that is because it has always been suboptimal to what existed.
Yeah, so it has gelled with it to the extent that there are no spaces left. It is totally seamlessly part of that pattern. But again, some people will not agree. They will, say that look, we brought a solar panel and this and that. But if you will actually break it down to a certain level, you will find that indigenous paradigm still is in an overall better way. So we were having some nice conversation about urbanization, before we started. We have done many Western style developments, But I would again probably take this offline with you and encourage.
Sir, my question is that marijuana and hemps, they are both used in edible or eatery and on the industrial side.
Yes.
So they become a very important plants, and they have the medicinal value because they are in the edible oils and other side of it. But what is the strength when they are used in industrialized sector? What is the strength means? What is the tenacity, malleability, ductility? Because they are used in ropes, so you can understand that point.
Most of the time, please.
And my next question is that because of their values in the industry and in the edible side, if something is grown in a mineral state, in the mineral where they are found, like they are good in Afghanistan, the best in Afghanistan, and the grapes are good in France.
Oh, you are saying in terms of geographical marker.
Because if they get a better food from the soil.
I understand. So you essentially what he's saying is that in some certain things grow much better or of much better quality or of much better flavor in certain areas like Assam tea or Hapus mangoes.
So then the medicinal value will increase. So how far we are to that extent to ascertain their medicinal value and industrial and the edible value?
See, the whole purpose of my talk was to encourage more research, bring awareness and let people, come to this. And I can talk about at least 5 more areas where more research, because those substances or plants were used in India indigenously at one time. I mentioned cotton, and Indian short staple cotton is a story which actually is such that at one time British nearly finished the Indian short staple cotton from existence, but somehow somewhere some seeds survived. Otherwise, the difference was that Indians used to work and build that cloth by hand, and still they were so skilled that they were able to produce muslin which was having up to 2000 threads. Just to contrast, with all modern technology, when they have tried to revive that muslin, they have reached only 600 threads as of now. And that's why we hear those stories that, royalty in Europe used to, and recorded debates are there in Roman senates actually, that all our gold is going to India because everybody, all fashionable ladies are only wanting Indian clothes. So it is equivalent to the way we, yearn for Yves Saint Laurent and all those clothes now. So that was the power of India. And when I say the power of India, why was that power? Because you had such mastery of that technology. It was not just because you were having some cotton and you were just growing. No, you were growing it to the level where nobody was able to match it. You are not able to match it yourself. They say no, that entire, what do you call?
Sorry.
Not sari, sir. Than is the word which we use. Bundle of cloth could pass through a ring. And it used to be transparent to the extent that ladies will always wear it in a very multi-layered fashion. It was so light on the body, etc., etc. In fact,
It was Chinese silk.
sir, Chinese silk is a separate story. I'm talking about cotton. Silk is a separate story. So, okay, we will touch upon cotton in little more detail. When British came to India, they saw this and they came essentially first to, find the root and take the goods and just eliminate the middleman. Then the next step was, why? Let's grab the land itself. Then they found that because after all, even then Indian goods were growing to Britain, there was British indigenous industry. So the workers created a strike in Britain. And in 1724, there was a calico. So calico is another part, the western coast produced calico and eastern coast used to produce muslin. And that was a more common cloth and this was more, finer cloth, etc., etc., but that was more abundant cloth. And muslin weavers were right up to Banaras, Murshidabad, Muzaffarpur, etc. So it's a very, very wide area. So they came up with the Calico Act in 1724, if I am not mistaken, whereby they banned, and in the interim period by 1757 they had caught hold of India, then they started eliminating Indians, then they started eliminating Indian cottons, they started breaking Indian gins and weaving mills, and whatever loot they had from India, they started investing in developing those machineries for cotton, where at least they could, make the weaving and spinning mechanized through steam and all. And subsequently they started exporting it back to India, taking raw material from you, but not your indigenous raw material, but the long staple cotton which they brought. So cotton is another substance like oil which has gone through a lot of politics. The Egyptians were colonized because of the Egyptian cotton in same period. They were right at their doorstep. India was yet far away.
Just one more observation. My main line of work is not remote sensing, but on remote sensing, when we were doing a little bit of work, found this weed all around areas where it was an infected farm. I mean, that is what I was interested in.
Which weed?
This particular weed, this cannabis, or whatever. Hemp. To my surprise, I found in areas where the crop was almost over because of some kind of infestation.
This
nothing,
is
nothing happened
my
to
point,
this
exactly. My point
So
exactly.
My suspect is it could well be a good weedicide or pesticide or insecticide.
I did not want to make, kind of leap of faith kind of conjectures, but I have a feeling that answer lies that genetically, because plant of a certain nature, to compensate for that nature, it has evolved in certain way which has given it certain strengths, etc., etc. But I'll leave all that good work to people who are experts in botany.
Not a single yellow leaf.
But it's a very, very important observation. Thank you very much. And to basically get that wheat, the red wheat which cattle used to eat, so that they become fat and give more beef. With that came another wonderful thing called Gajar Ghas in India. In 61, we had no Gajar Ghas in India. Now there is no part of India where this weed is not available, and it is one of the most virulent, most damaging and most baddest kind of wheat. It is equivalent to inviting Ravana home for dinner, that kind of weed.
Gajar ghas.
Gajar.
Gajar is as nutritious.
No. Gajar Ghas is only the name given, not carrot. It's having another name.
Congress
Well, ma'am, that is the least of our worries coming from that quarter. If it was only that much.
So very eye-opener for us. I mean, this kind of a marijuana all is discussed in a hush-hush voice, but you have made it very open. My question is there any spiritual dimension to this plant? Because
Actually, there are many substances which have this kind of psychotropic effect, and those elements are there in many cultures. So for instance, magic mushroom. Now magic mushroom is a buzzword. Probably there are different mushrooms which are used by American Indians over the entire Americas, and they do create certain effect on human beings in general, but without going into too much detail of it, they actually create altered state of consciousness. So altered state of consciousness, anybody would like to hazard a guess which are the other things which produce altered state of consciousness?
Ayahuasca among South American tribal or native populations actually gives one visions of Mother Earth coming and healing body.
Yeah, but I was actually hoping that people will say LSD, which used to produce these altered state of consciousness and what we call cross-sensory kind of experiences. So people would start seeing the music or hearing the paintings kind of. I have only seen some videos of the people in where either people have acted out in the movies the way it affects the human beings, or actually a few of actual effect of LSD, and a lot of experiments happened with LSD during early 60s and during the war. My overall submission in this is that India, while medicants have used some of these substances, generally the Indian approach to producing altered state of consciousness was through your own efforts and meditation, and it has been hugely successful. In fact, I have read people say that what is the difference between druggie and a yogi? They say that while druggie sinks, yogi keeps swimming. He is able to handle it, and those people, they start with whatever they have in mind, but they get suckered into that paradigm. So a very interesting question, but sir, totally a very different area because essentially, I have one very overall, because the talks which we produce in this forum are in certain direction. But if we Indians, we have gone through, I mean, some of the senior people here definitely would have gone through that cycles where India was a poor and hungry India, and we had absolutely nothing. And that generation has actually worked for us to see where we are, but we still are a very poor and hungry India. And we need to first and foremost, because bahubhukshitaye kathay kim na karote pansam. Hungry man is ready to do anything. We have seen that when British produced Bengal famines, people were ready to sell their children, the sons and daughters also. We have to come out of that paradigm by being non-dependent. Actually, at some point, some interest prevented you from using this plant or many other plants for your own interest, which was part of your traditional knowledge systems. And this is only one. There would be many if we apply our mind. I am only firing the warning shot. I don't have enough knowledge. I am neither a botanist, nor I am a medical practitioner, nor I have expertise on making concrete. But I am a student of patterns basically. So I have observed this pattern. And once I have observed this pattern in context of hemp, I have observed this pattern in other contexts also.
Recently, I have come across a message which says that America, they are approved a medicine out of this, which is to be used for intractable type of epilepsy. Some very rare type of epilepsy which is not amenable to any.
It will not surprise me, but again, like I said as a disclaimer, that anybody who is seriously thinking about exploring the possibility of any derivative of marijuana for any medical condition, specifically if it is more serious nature like epilepsy or Alzheimer or Parkinson's or cancer, should do a very thorough investigation personally and get very convinced,
My question
But
was,
there is enough support.
Have you come across any Ayurvedic reference to its use?
Not to my knowledge, but I am sure there can be. Rahul, would you like to? I also don't have an answer. But Ayurveda has been very comprehensive, and who knows, there could be a.
One point I did want to make on your, you didn't cover plastic. If you can cover
Yeah, you were mentioning it, and I think
plastic piece, and one interesting video I had seen about exchange about the invasive species, Parthenium grass that you mentioned. There is actually research in the US region with invasive species, and that there are native plants of a certain region which through root systems and release of chemicals actually fight back invasive
fight
species.
back the invasive ones. Yeah.
So my feeling is, the chid in all the Almora region, everything has been wiped out. I don't know if it is invasive or, it seems invasive to me. It's taken over everything, leading to forest fires, all of that. I have found in my general observation, instinct-wise or by observation, that Shisham is seeming to fight back. Deodar is much higher in the hills.
No, sir.
But in lower Almora, lower Himalayan hills, wherever there is, I found that
Pine.
pine. There are 3 varieties of pine, and Shisham is seeming to find back. And just a thought occurred that maybe hemp is another one which could actually wipe out lantana. And Parthenium.
I might have missed one point. One very important aspect of the hemp growth, because I said it likes the lower reaches of Himalayas or other similar places. Stabilizing the slope from the point of view of landslides could be another wonderful usage if it is systematically done. So I have still not addressed the plastic part. Actually, Rahul, the theme would be something like this, that where does plastic come from? Generally comes out of petrochemicals. So as you start moving away from petrochemicals, and I have a feeling that this paradigm is approaching us very fast, and it is very threatening to certain corners of the world. So it will create very strong opposition to this also. The way, you know, animal, when it's in death throes, it creates violent movements. Once it is on us, we will shift to those patterns. For instance, if we can produce paper out of hemp, we can probably produce such papers also which will be used in packaging. What is the use of plastic essentially? Use of plastic is born out of two things. One, a mentality to milk profits at any cost, which is grounded in Adam Smith, Wealth of Nation, Keynesian economy and Protestant ethics. In general, it's a pattern. And the other mentality, which is use and throw, buy again, what is the big deal? You know, consume. So both these are non-indigenous thoughts. If you will move back to your indigenous thoughts, you will have probably many of the answers. I am not bold enough to say, but probably all answers. So plastic essentially is born out of this, that live now, pay later kind of mentality, devil may care kind of mentality, why I can afford it kind of mentality. So once that mentality changes, many things change. After all, even US used to have your glass bottles, then they changed to, you know, those cans, glass bottles, recyclable cans were not, so on and so forth.
My question is actually about the next steps. You know, we all know, we are sort of on the same page with what has to be done. That law needs to be amended quite clearly. So my question is, have you, if not you, has anyone who's interested taken it up with, say, organizations like Center for Science and Environment, if they claim to be really for the environment? Do we have any genuine NGOs which care about the environment? Because this is one of the solutions.
Yeah, sorry, I interrupted you. Please finish your question.
Is there any move? Are there any organizations thinking about it? Because we have a current government which is at least favorably inclined to listen, or not. I don't know.
I'll tell you my perspective. First and foremost, such work should be done by those who are qualified for this. So it should be done by agencies like CDRI and similar ones, you know, and like Ministry of Ayush, which is specifically focused on indigenous knowledge traditions oriented towards medicinal uses. He is asking me very specific question, which is that why don't we legalize, and he is asking from perspective of recreational use. I individually will never endorse such a view. Laws are made by a very common understanding and common agreement. How does a common agreement or understanding reached? It is reached by building awareness and consensus. If we don't have the knowledge about our plants, our knowledge traditions, or our, the facts of the matter, or the due deliberation, then whatever decision we will take will be a half-baked decision, and we have taken a series of half-baked decisions in past. Anybody, because this is a very august, gathering here, will be able to quote 5 examples, 10 examples. So I would simply say that if marijuana is to be legalized for recreational purpose, there has to be some rules around it, but there is some case for some relaxation, is all I can say. Bhang falls under Excise Act and marijuana falls under narcotic substances in India. Difference is the kind of law, the way law will deal with you if they found you with bhang or if they found you with marijuana. So there is a physical impact on it, and there is a physical impact of this substance on you with increasing usage and dosage, and then there is a legal aspect to it. So that is where I would leave.